If you've just joined us, you're watching NewsLink on DSTV channel 403. Now, communities around the country face a daily struggle for water. While South Africa is a water-scarce country, supply problems often are the result of poor management. Now, 132 billion rand has been allocated to water boards and projects over the next 3 years. Now, to better manage the money, government has been holding a water and sanitation workshop. It also comes ahead of the UN Water Conference next month. Let's speak to Deputy Minister for Water and Sanitation, Mr. David Mahlobo. Deputy Minister, good morning, and thank you very much for your time. Perhaps before we get to the two-day workshop or summit, if you will, can we just start with the recent floods? Your department has released a statement indicating that water levels are rising rapidly at the Bloemhof Dam as inflow from upstream the Vaal River increases. What is the status just this morning?
Thank you very much, Mfundo, and a very good morning to your viewers across the length and breadth of our country. Over the last more than 2 weeks, South Africa has experienced a lot of rains below the normal average that we normally receive, affecting a number of our provinces: KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape, Mpumalanga, Limpopo, Gauteng, certain parts of Northwest. And these rains, in our case, they've caused a lot of havoc. You know that His Excellency, our President, has declared a state of national disaster so that interventions can be made in supporting those provinces that are affected. And we are part of those particular efforts, working with the National Disaster Management Center, led by the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. On our part, there are two elements. One of the elements is to support communities in terms of immediate relief, because there are areas where water has been cut off because of the infrastructure that has been washed away, and certain instances water has been polluted. And we're supporting those particular mechanisms led by Minister Mchunu. But at the very same time, our water resource infrastructure, the dams, they are so full. They are so full that in most instances, they are more than 100% full. And because of the dam safety measures that we must apply, we have to be able to release some of the water so that we can release the pressure out of the water system. You might have seen the releases that we've done in the Vaal Dam in the beginning of this month, so that we can be able to ensure that this massive infrastructure does not actually burst and cause a lot of loss of lives, including assets for many communities. And a number of these dams all over the country are full as we speak now. And we are working with communities, including other stakeholders, that let's work together, ensuring that we minimize that when we do the releases, they don't wash away people's assets. But the other challenge we face, Mfundo, in our country is that many South Africans have decided to encroach in the floodline. In other words, they've built their assets or their structures within a very close range to most of the rivers and most of our dams, including some of the instances where we have seen that the question of spatial planning of people building in the river banks. Therefore, we are calling for them that when local government and ourselves, we ask them to evacuate. That's the right thing to do. But going forward, we must be stricter around the issues of encroaching on floodlines, riverbanks, so that we cannot have a disaster that will have been prevented.
Now, speaking of those community members, some of them have criticized and are even threatening legal action against the department for that decision to open the sluice gates, particularly those 12, in a manner in which they were opened. They say it should have been perhaps done more gradually. What's your take on that?
The fact of the matter is that those sluice gates, they were not all open at the same time. In the first instance, we opened sluice gates number 1 in the beginning of February. Then we opened additional 2, and we've been opening all of them gradually. But we've increased communication, and the people that are in the Vaal River Bank, they know this is not happening for the first time. And some of these communities, especially some of the people in business, they've been very reluctant, and some of them not ignoring the call to evacuate. But as I was saying, most of these establishments, you could see they are within the flood line in terms of 1:100-year flood lines. And the damage currently stands is more than 120,000, 120% full. And if we don't act, we'll be able to wipe away all those communities in Gauteng, in the Free State, until in the Northern Cape, if we don't do that, manage and control water releases. It's not happening here. Also in Mpumalanga, there are releases in KwaZulu-Natal. Everywhere we're doing these releases. But our appeal, once again, is to say, let's work together. Let's be able to respond to this. We're using different platforms, whether it's the media, the TV, the radios, the local mechanism that are there, because we know that during the course of load shedding, some people might not be receiving these messages. But it's important that our people keep an eye on our website. They keep an eye on the weather forecast, because even now there are predictions of a cyclone that is approaching South Africa, and it might have a negative impact approaching this weekend.
No, very disturbing, that particular prediction. Then to the finance minister's speech yesterday, he revealed the progress that's been made through Operation Vulindlela, that you've managed to clear the water licenses backlog. And now, of course, you're issuing licenses within 90 days. You've honestly come a long way from the 300 days it used to be. Just talk to us how much it took to actually clear that backlog.
We are very pleased that we have responded to the decision by His Excellency the President, when he directed us that our failure to respond to issue water licenses has a significant impact on investment potential, especially for a number of industries. That requires that we give them a water use license for their operation to help them. When we've increased the capacity in the department, especially the technical capacity, because some of these environmental management reports, before they become a record of decision, those designs must be assessed by engineers, professional registered engineers, because if we give a water use authorization and anything happens on a water infrastructure that has technical designs, we'll also be liable as a department. That capacity is there. And the team from provinces has been working very hard. And we're pleased that we've been working with the presidency and the National Treasurer under Operation Vulindlela. And most of these backlogs were in the Western Cape. They've all been cleared, and we're also strengthening our water tribunal in dealing with some of those issues that are there. But we're very pleased that the leadership of our new DG and the DTGs that we've appointed in the department, they are responding, and we're very pleased that many of the people that have applied for these licenses have given words of encouragement on how our teams have treated them, but also including those that are directly and indirectly affected who want to appeal around those licenses that were issued. Then the next step is to keep that timeline, but at the very same time ensure compliance with the license condition, because giving that water use authorization, it doesn't mean that people mustn't comply in terms of quality, in terms of the management of structures, and we'll have to ensure that we improve our enforcement capabilities.
And then the minister also revealed that your portfolio is expected to spend around 132 billion over the next 3 years on infrastructure investment projects. Just talk to us a bit about some of those projects, perhaps in the pipeline or those that are shovel-ready, and just perhaps if there are any concerns around the water boards.
The water boards in South Africa, we have reconfigured them so that they can be a wall-to-wall coverage. And the water boards, they remain central to our quest to ensure access to water for many South Africans, both for social and economic rights, including environmental rights. For an example, we know that Gauteng, over some time, has been having challenges about water shedding, and rainwater, which is at the center of the operations here. They are putting a lot of money to do the augmentation of the current available infrastructure so that we can be able to match the population growth and the GDP growth of all these provinces, because immediately there is an increase in the population size and the GDP. Investment infrastructure must happen. Last week, around the Guruleni, we had to open up a biggest water reservoir that is designed in terms of the new technologies. It carries about 230 million liters per day of the availability of water, so that areas like Swane, Ekurhuleni, Mpumalanga, around Gersibande and Nkangala, they will not be having a situation because of load shedding that they run out of water. But we are proceeding with the big work around the Polykhali Dam so that the Lesotho Phase 2 must be able to proceed. In the Western Cape, there is the biggest project in Blantyre that we opened, including the Glen Williams Dam. We are ready to move. KwaZulu-Natal, they are also having challenges of water. The Umkoma's water project, that is going to cost us about 25 billion rands. All the agreements are in place. We are sorting out the issues of funding. Zimbabwe, they've spoken about it over decades. And we know now that Treasury and ourselves, they already money is being made to start with the doubling dam so that those communities are able to have water. You can go to Mpumalanga, your issues of Loskop Dam, the communities that have no water in Jes Moroka and Tembisile and Skukune, including Giani in Limpopo. The water right now, as we speak, most of the work has been done. We're at the stage of doing reticulation. And this is an important investment so that we can ensure that there is water security. But the other matter that we must attend is issues of operation and maintenance. Infrastructure decay and the investment on O&M, both in terms of capability. Sometimes the infrastructure can be available. If you look at South Africa, access to water infrastructure is running at 93% and on sanitation 84%. But the availability of water on every day for 365 days is deteriorating because there's been less investment on operations and maintenance, including the leakages of water that is happening.
I mean, even in our newsroom, we've received calls from as far as Mpumalanga and Kanyamazane. They haven't had water. They're also struggling there. So it's honestly a bit of a concern. But Deputy Minister, thank you very much for your time this morning. That was Water and Sanitation Deputy Minister David Mahlobo.